possibly be the most morbid ranking video that you've ever watched, because today we're ranking character deaths in A Song of Ice and Fire. Let's be honest, there are a lot of deaths in this book series. Too many for us to rank them all, otherwise we'd be here all day. So I have collected my top 21 character deaths, and today we're going to rank them in terms of the ones that still haunt me to this day and the ones that I got over very quickly. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well. Do you have a favourite death? Is it morally acceptable to have a favourite death? I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, there were some characters where I was very happy that they died. I'm not normally like that as a person, but when it comes to A Song of Ice and Fire, it's totally acceptable. And let's crack on with it. So this is my tier maker. I've created this on tiermaker.com if you want to create something similar, and these are my ranks. So first of all, at the top, we have the GOAT deaths. These are the ones that still haunt me to this day. The ones that I think about often, the ones that I really struggle to get over. The hard-hitting ones, the emotional ones, maybe some tear-jerkers might go in this category. Next up we have classic GRRM. This is a classic author move. These are the deaths where maybe we saw it coming, but it made sense. Maybe it was vital for the plot. Maybe it's just a classic George R.R. Martin move. Or maybe it was just a really impactful one. So that's my second tier. Third, we simply have RIP. These are the deaths where I'm kind of saddened by it, and I do wish that these people would rest in peace. And their death was relevant, however it didn't really move me emotionally as much as the tiers above it. And then at the bottom we've got sad but got over it. These are like the meh deaths. These are the ones where it was sad whilst I was reading it because it was a death, but then I moved on very, very quickly, and by the time I turned the page I didn't care anymore. Possibly quite brutal. Let's crack on and rank these deaths. So starting off very randomly, we have the other that Samwell Tarly murdered with his dragonglass dagger. Now this death I wanted to put in here as one of my top 20, not because of the fact that the other died, but because of what it meant for Sam. This death sparked a transition in Samwell Tarly's character. It gave him a bit of character development, it gave him some depth, but also it didn't solve all of his problems. It didn't automatically turn him from a coward into a brave person, because that's just not realistic. And I really like the way that this death was done, and I think it was important. Was it completely needed? No. I think that the story would have been the same whether or not Samwell Tarly did murder this other. So I'm going to pop it in the RIP category. I liked it. I thought it was a good change of pace for Sam, but I also like that it was balanced out. It didn't completely change him into a brave character, because that's not who he is deep down. Next up we have Lady Liza Tully. This is a person that I was actually very happy when they died, because she was so annoying. She was one of the most irritating characters ever. In my opinion, I did not like this woman. She was psychologically insane. She was delirious all the time. Every action was as though she was on some hardcore mushrooms beforehand. She was tripping big time. So for that, I was rooting for her death. I felt like it was a little bit predictable. I kind of sensed it coming, but I thought it was great. I'm going to rank that pretty highly in classic GRM. That was a death I wanted and a death I'm happy about. Next up we have Corin Halfhand. This was a death I found highly emotive, highly impactful. This was a turning point for Jon's character. This guy was a very honourable man. Corin Halfhand was obviously murdered by Jon Snow, but at his own request, to make it seem as though Jon has betrayed the Night's Watch and has joined the Wildlings. But obviously it was just a ploy. I thought that because of Corin Halfhand's orders to Jon, he's a very honourable guy. He kept his oath until his last dying moment, and it moved me. I was very shocked by this death, and it really deeply saddened me. It's not one that still haunts me to this day, but it is ranked highly because I thought that this was a crazy plot line, and I also think that it was just the start of some very difficult journeys that Jon has to go through as well. And I also thought that Corin Halfhand's loyalty to the Night's Watch is admirable. So I'm going to pop it in classic GRRM. Very moving, had a strong message behind it. We have Maester Crescent. So Maester Crescent is the one who accidentally poisons himself when he's trying to kill Melisandre. I thought that this was a powerful death because It sparks the lengths that Melisandre and Stannis will go to, and it also kind of shows their link together and how Melisandre has this big influence over Stannis and his actions and the way he treats his people. And I also think that this adds a lot of power to Melisandre's character. I thought that this was a very impactful death. However, he's not a character that I particularly cared about. I felt like any character, well not any side character could have died in this way and it would have had the same message. It wasn't powerful because it was him. I'm going to put Maester Crezen in sad, but got over it. Ooh, next we have Septa Mordain. There's a lot of side characters in this who have a lot of powerful deaths. So Septa Mordain dies in Game of Thrones, and again, it's one of those deaths that sets the scene for the trajectory of the book series. This is where you know George R.R. Martin ain't playing about. He's gonna throw the plot twists at you. He's gonna throw the brutality at you. If he wants to kill a character off and it makes sense, he's gonna kill a character off. There's no heroic person who saves the day. That hero can die. I think Septa Mordain's death was quite shocking because she just seemed like a very normal, casual, nice, good-hearted character, and she did not get a death that she deserved. So she was killed by the Lannister guards and her head was popped on a spike next to Ned Stark's, I'm pretty sure. I did find it sad. I don't think it's sad but got over it sad, because I did actually feel quite moved by this death, and I think because it's so early on in the series, it sets the tone. So I'm going to put her in Rip. Rip to you, Septa Mordain. Next up we have Lord Beric Dondarrion. This guy dies so many times, it is actually crazy, and I found him to be confusing, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not one of the smartest cookies, and the fact that he just kept dying and dying and dying and then being resurrected over and over again, it was shocking to me. Couldn't wrap my head around how he has 9 lives like a cat. I'm sure if I looked into it there would be a perfectly plausible reason and an explanation to that, I just have not yet. But he does finally die. And it was sad, to be honest, and I wasn't actually expecting it. I'm going to pop him in Rip. Next up we have Kevan Lannister. This is a shocking death. This is the most recent death that we have to date, because he is the most recent chapter that we have to date. Excluding the Winds of Winter preview chapters, Kevan is the epilogue in Dance with Dragons. His death was shocking. I didn't expect it. I thought it was unpredictable, and it has a powerful message behind it, and his death is almost like collateral damage from everything that Cersei's done as well. Kevan Lannister was a very honourable guy. He was very loyal to his family. He cared a lot about them, clearly, and he would do whatever it took to keep their reputation solid after the mess that Cersei created. And I was saddened by his death. I don't like the Lannisters, but he is one of my favourite Lannisters because he's just a generally decent guy, it seems. So just because he's a Lannister, I shouldn't automatically hate him. I'm going to pop him in classic GRM because that was powerful, it was moving, so impactful, possibly almost still haunts me. I think it's just the fact that he is more of a side character that it doesn't haunt me, whereas if he was a main character, I would feel a lot more emotionally impacted by that. Oh, Khal Drogo. So this was a death that I actually found really sad, and I didn't even particularly like Khal Drogo that much, which is why I'm surprised that his death impacted me in the way it did. I think the thing about Khal Drogo's death is purely because it's so drawn out. He is in pain for so long before he finally dies. And his death is due to Daenerys showing him mercy, essentially. That was really sad to witness Daenerys having to do that. She clearly didn't want to, but she also knew it was like a sense of duty to him. And deeply, deeply saddening. I was very, very impacted by those chapters. Do you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Khal Drogo in Still Haunts Me. I know that that may be an unpopular opinion, maybe quite controversial, but I think it's more the fact that it was Dany who had to do it, and it was also the fact that he had such a slow decline in health, and he was quite clearly suffering, and it was just so sad. Next up we have Craster. So this is somebody again where I was very happy that they died because he was just an awful, awful person. I was rooting for him to die. The only issue is that I feel like he dies too quickly. So for him, he is killed by somebody called Dirk. I've been informed that they changed the name of the person in the TV show. I have not got up to that part in the TV show yet, but I've been told that they've changed the name. But in the books, he's killed by somebody called Dirk. I was happy that he died. It was what I wanted. My only issue is that it wasn't drawn out long enough, and I kind of wish that he died a little bit slower because he was such an awful, horrid guy. I would put him in the bottom category, but I'm not sad, and there wasn't anything for me to get over. So I'm gonna put him in RIP, and I'm not going to change it to rest in peace, but more of rest in pieces, because I hope that he suffers a worse fate in hell than he ever would have done on Earth in Westeros. Next up, you can't really see from the picture, but this is Serio Farel, who is Arya's mentor, teaches her how to sword dance, and again, another lovely character. I absolutely loved this guy so much. I loved the bond that he had with Arya. I loved that he kind of took her under his wing, and she wanted to go against the traditional prejudice of what women should be, being like noble ladies. She wants to be a badass fighter, and he taught her the basic skills that she needed. And again, he is given a death similar to like Septim Ordain's that he did not deserve, and I was really sad about it. So he is somebody where when he died, I was impacted massively because I really liked him, and it was almost like his death was trying to protect Arya. I'm gonna pop him in classic GRRM. Okay, the next one. Do I need to say anything? Ned Stark. Still haunts me to this day. Every waking moment of my life, I think about Ned Stark. Another character who did not deserve to die, very, very unexpected, set the tone massively for everything that was to come. And just somebody who was probably the most shocking death, because he was the main character who you thought was going to save the day and have that classic hero's journey. And when he died, I actually had to reread the chapter to make sure I'd understood, because I just thought, how can this author kill off this character? It did not make sense to me. The cogs were not aligning up there. Has to haunt me, has to haunt everybody. That was a sad death. Speaking of other sad deaths, we have Ygritte. This is another one that was really hard to process, especially because she dies in front of Jon, and we all know how strong their relationship was. It's another death that Jon witnesses that is just so hard-hitting and adds a lot of power to his chapters. I liked her. I thought that she was great. I connected really well to her, and I'm so sad that she is dead. I wished that she wasn't. I really wished that she'd just managed to escape. And I am going to put her in Still Haunts Me because I was deeply saddened by it. Again, another one that might be quite controversial, but Ygritte's death was sad AF. Joffrey, so happy that he died, and it was a top tier death. And another one where I had to reread the chapter afterwards because I wasn't sure he was truly dead, and I really wanted him to be. And I thought that knowing George R.R. Martin, Joffrey somehow would come back to life and, the evil would continue. But no, he stayed dead, and for that, I loved it. So I wasn't sad. There was nothing for me to get over. I don't want to rest him in peace. I want him to rest terribly, to never rest. And I think it's a classic GRM. It was a brilliant death, and I was so happy with it. Catelyn, the Red Wedding. This is sad. This was sad. I think for me, I've mentioned in the past, in previous videos, but this is one of the best written chapters I have ever read out of any book. It is so powerful because Catelyn, we are viewing the Red Wedding through Catelyn's eyes, and that is hard-hitting. Oh goodness. This was the only chapter, pretty sure it was the only chapter, in the whole of A Song of Ice and Fire where I cried. I'm so sure that it is. I don't think I cried at any other chapters in the whole series. I blubbered, and I have to put it in Still Haunts Me. Again, similar to Khal Drogo, Catelyn isn't one of my favourite characters. I don't particularly like the woman, but that death, I wouldn't wish that on her at all. And the fact that she sees Robb as well in those moments, oof, harsh. Next up we have Micah, a little bit of a random one, but again I thought he was a good character that set the tone for the series. So Micah is the little, I'm sure he's a butcher's boy or a baker's boy that's like kind of playing with Arya, and then he is murdered on Joffrey's orders randomly. He did not deserve that death at all. And I thought that it was one of the ones that kind of helped me see what I was letting myself in for by reading this book series. So he is sad, but I did get over it. Another one of the Red Wedding victims, we have Robb Stark. Now, I absolutely love Robb. I know that we don't get any POV chapters, but that being said, his death is still so sad. And it does still haunt me. I've got to put him up there next to his mother. It's just so sad as well that she thinks he is her last remaining son. And his death just sends a strong ass message. Oberyn Martell. Now, I have been told that his death is one of the most brutal on-screen deaths possible. So he is the one who gets his head crushed. I'm not looking forward to watching that. If you didn't know, I am doing episode by episode Game of Thrones reactions on my channel, so I am uploading them weekly. When I get to this death, I don't know how I'm going to be able to cope, so I hope you look forward to that, because I genuinely don't know what I'm going to witness. Such a brutal death. That is classic George R.R. Martin. No one does a brutal death quite like him. Next up we have Robert Baratheon. Now, I found this death to be very underwhelming for such a apparent mighty warrior, he's a king, and for him to die by getting drunk and a boar savaging him during a hunt. I know that he was intentionally made drunk by the Lannisters, so it was like attempted murder, but for him I just found his death very underwhelming, and I don't think it kind of suited the end that he necessarily deserved. So I'm going to put him as sad, but I got over it. Renly's death was another one that was quite confusing but very unexpected, and I really liked Renly as a character. His death again sets the scene for Melisandre and Stannis' powers. However, I was confused by the way that he died because it was never really explained in those early stages, and I did have to wait quite a while and gain more understanding on A Song of Ice and Fire in order to work out how he actually died, because it's a lot to do with like shadow assassins and supernatural forces. But I was sad that he died, so for him I'm going to pop him in RIP. Next up we have Viserys Targaryen. So he dies from Khal Drogo putting the burning molten metal crown on his head, and it kind of melts into his skull and all that stuff. He was horrid to Daenerys. He did not treat her very well at all. I felt quite sad for her in those moments because she'd basically lost every bit of family that she knew. And I liked him as a character. I love the actor for him. He is brilliant. And I'm going to pop him in classic GRRM because I wasn't expecting it, it was unpredictable, and it had a strong message behind it. It was powerful. Next up we have two people together that were killed by Tyrion. So this is Tywin Lannister. I get that there is a strong message behind this death. I also think that Tywin's death showed the decline in his power. So he's such a powerful man, and then he kind of has that fall from grace. He has like a power decline, and I think as well his death, Tyrion had been leading up to it for a while, and so I think it was necessary. I don't think I should rate it as high as classic GRRM because it didn't really mean all that much to me. I got a strong message from it, but it when I'm looking at the other people in this tier, I don't think Tyrion comes close to that. So I'm going to pop him in RIP. And then the last in my tier of top deaths from A Song of Ice and Fire, we have Shae. Again, this death, I'm not going to lie, I felt it was pointless. I'm sorry. If Tyrion has killed Tywin, I don't think he needed to kill Shae. I just don't think it fits with Tyrion's character arc. I suppose it shows like the shocking tragic end to a forbidden love story, maybe, if you're trying to look at it that way. I just felt it was not needed. I don't really know why it was put in there. I think you could have given her a different storyline of just Tyrion sending her away somewhere, or somebody else sending her away, or I don't know. I felt there were different angles that the end to this character could have gone down without her necessarily dying. So I'm going to put her in sad, but got over it. So this is my final tier of deaths in A Song of Ice and Fire. So what do you think? We've got some strong characters in Still Haunts Me, and I'm happy with the ones that I popped in that tier. This definitely feels appropriate for me. These are the characters that I was the most moved by, and their deaths just still shock me to this day, to be honest. And then we've got my bottom tier, again, a lot of kind of like side characters, I suppose, ones that we don't get a POV from actually. And then we've got this crazy bunch in the middle. So what do you guys think? I'm really happy with this tier list actually. It fits well with my opinions and what I think to these characters and how I thought that the deaths were written and whether or not they made sense to me. I would love for you to leave me a comment and let me know what your favourite and least favourite deaths were in A Song of Ice and Fire and why as well. It'd be really interesting to know. And were there any characters that I didn't include in this ranking list where you thought they had a particularly powerful death or you felt like their death was really important to talk about? Because like I said, these are just around 20 or so, but there are a lot of characters that die in this series. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here and for watching it. If you enjoyed, make sure to give it a thumbs up to let me know. And if you like my content and you want to see more from me, then please subscribe because it's free and it means that you can see my videos a lot easier. I'll see you next time, or rather you'll see me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.